So Minari, it premiered at last year's Sundance Film Festival. This is the 2021. And we've talked about it a few times on the show because I talked about it because after seeing it at Sundance. I know, Abby, you've kind of mentioned when you got a chance to see it, and it's kind of had a weird release. You know, it hit theaters just on February 12th. It's now about to hit on demand. And so we finally found some time to talk about it. Will, you were finally able to see it. I've said plenty about this film. It was my number 2 film of last year. I don't have too much else to say, although I was really, really privileged to be able to talk to one of the actors, Yuh-Jung Youn, legendary actor, a Korean actor who plays Sunja in the film, and that interview is live right now on the Cinemaholics feed. That was a blast. This film is directed by Lee Isaac Chung. It also stars Steven Yeun, Han Ye-ri, Alan Kim, Noel Kate Cho, and Will Patton. So, Will, since you kind of came to this film later than the rest of us, what did you think of Minari, and if you can kind of set it up for everybody?
Yeah, sure. This is in a sense, you're a little bit traditional American Dream type story where we follow a family, trying to establish their own, plane in life. In this case, we have a Korean family who is, I forget which state they move into.
Arkansas.
Very middle America type place. And the father here, played by Steven Yeun, he gets a chance to run this like mini farm, and even though his wife is very reluctant to it, he's very adamant that this is going to be like their way of getting like their own in life, their way to kind of establish their own livelihood, their own grounds, like their own family, like their own home basically. And so they are trying to make this thing work, but clearly there's some reservations and different issues that tend to come from there, and we follow basically this family as they're just trying to make their way in Arkansas, and it's a very gentle, I believe, autobiographical type film. I don't want to speak for the film.
Yeah, semi-autobiographical. Yeah, there's a lot of stories in here straight from Lee Isaac Chung's life, but yeah, it's not like a one-to-one thing. Yeah,
I mean, I assume because like the son, like, or at least David, his story felt very, based in realism, or somewhat from the perspective of the filmmaker, because we follow his POV a lot throughout the film. So I figured that was, the filmmaker's autobiographical side, but I didn't want to assume because, I don't know much about the filmmaker and his personal life. But I think those are the moments that really stand out to me. I think that's where the movie really is enriched, and you can tell like those autobiographical moments really inform the film in a good way. But I think altogether, it's a well-rounded, heartfelt, sincere film that I think from a story standpoint doesn't really do that much different, but I think the perspective that's given to is where it really stands out, and we get like you said, these lot of realistic touches that inform the story in a heartfelt and sincere way, and especially as it gets along and you develop the characters and you get to see their individuals' perspectives and just how they perceive this new living situation. I think it really comes together in a well-informed way, and I can definitely see why you and a lot of critics got a lot out of it when it premiered at Sundance last year.
Yeah, it's something else when you watch it like with other people, for sure. And yeah, I did get a chance to rewatch this, and one thing that I picked up on a little bit more in terms of David's character is how dreamy and how this movie's story does feel a lot like nostalgia and childhood, like the way that there's not like one through line of the story. I mean, there is, but the plot really does sort of feel like how time passes when you're a kid. It's just like, there is no sense of real time. You're not really grounded in a very specific, because you're a kid. Like everything you're experiencing feels kind of like all blurred together, which is something I think is a really cool filmmaking technique that Chung gets across here. But okay, Abby Olcese, you saw this one not too long ago, a couple months ago now, and I think your main thing with it was the chicken sexing controversy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's only a controversy with me, but it's probably also a controversy with anybody who's ever hatched their own chicks. But apart from that, I do like this movie a lot. The chicken sexing scandal in kind of a nutshell, is that the two parents, Steven Yeun's character and Yeri Han's character, their day job is working in a hatchery where they are sexing chickens and separating them by gender. And I just want to note up front that you cannot sex chicks when they are that small. You have to actually wait for them to grow and start displaying actual characteristics of roosterness in order to actually tell that you have a male chick. However, I understand that certain liberties have to be taken for the sake of it being a movie. And
if you can put aside that one glaring
one aesthetic thing, yes,
I understand it's a lot to ask. It is, but if you can do it.
Yes, I can. There's a lot else about this movie that I like a lot. I grew up in Southeast Kansas, not far from Arkansas, where this takes place, and there's a lot of similarities, I think, with kind of rural Ozark adjacent communities and farming culture. I appreciated the 80s evangelical era stamp on it when the family goes to church. There are a lot of other specifics that really did ring true for me, in addition to it just being a really lovely story about a family trying to live the American dream and the struggles therein. I think a lot of the individual characters are super great. Yuh-Jung is, I think, a real highlight of the movie as their grandmother. She's just a delight to watch, and just a shout out, the Kansas City Film Critics Circle did give her the award for best supporting actress this year, and I was very proud of us for having voted her in. I think it's also worth shouting out Will Patton as their kind of odd neighbor Paul, who is just very sweet and very friendly and trying to help them, but also has his own strange quirks that, again, as somebody who grew up not terribly far from where this movie takes place, felt very true to people that I have met in that area, just in terms of how he views his faith and kind of how he walks in the world, and how he's a generally very kind person who you're not always sure it's safe to be around, even though it usually is. But yeah, there are just a lot of very, very lovely pieces of this movie. And Steven Yeun's performance is another one that's very, very strong and very thoughtful, and you can tell that it has a lot of personal meaning to him as an actor, in addition to just it being a good performance.
Yeah, there's so much honesty in this movie. It says things and it does things that aren't always convenient for a movie to sort of be, things that you wouldn't always consider cinematic, but it goes there. Like, who wants to watch like a couple argue while their kids listen in? Especially in this type of movie. Like, usually filmmakers feel like you have to tone that stuff down so that, you don't get bummed out. But no, this film goes there. It allows those moments of like just that discomfort, because you're there with those kids in those moments, and it makes the joyful moments of the film feel all the better. But without making it seem like you're getting a sanitized version of this childhood that we're experiencing. I would also say the same thing. First of all, I appreciate that this was actually filmed in Oklahoma, so not quite Arkansas, but it feels like the South. Like, this isn't like a suburb of LA, and it's not even like the suburb of Atlanta, which is still the South, but we tend to get that version of the South, which is just different, not better or worse or anything, just different. But I think like that area of the country is very specific, and, not that Oklahoma and Arkansas are exactly the same, but it's at least in the same zone. And one thing that I think that you kind of touched on it, Abby, that this film, what encapsulates how much this film works for me is specifically that whole scene, or like all the scenes that have to do with like the people in the area, the evangelicals there. I think sometimes people who aren't really from the South, who try to depict like racism in the South, they tend to, not that it's wrong to do this, but like it's kind of like a contrivance at this point, or a trope. It just happens a lot where it's just very overt. Like, you just have people who are just really racist to your face in a very like mean-spirited, very like bigoted, Disney Channel original movie from the 90s. Like, we need to talk about racism kind of way, which, of course there's a place for that because it does happen. But I think what's interesting about this film is like casual racism and evangelicals in general, they're more awkward than anything else. like it's the kind of thing that a lot of people don't even notice, but like it does happen. And that is so much more representative, I think.
Yeah. My dad used to work in international education. He in a small college in southeast Kansas where I grew up, and he was responsible for helping establish partnerships with colleges overseas and getting international students to come to the school, and often like helping them find places to live long term after they decided to move to the country in some cases. But yeah, I've been to many a church function where well-meaning white evangelical individuals were trying to welcome international students into their new community, and just being well-intentioned but just super awkward. And that was a perspective that I appreciated seeing here. That it's not always necessarily outright like horrible. It's just weird and strange and kind of alienating. And I feel like that's a perspective that I've definitely seen reflected in real life as well.
Right. It's not like rudeness necessarily. I mean, it is, but it's not like, because I think like politeness and manners are really, really important in this part of the country. And so like people aren't trying to be rude. They're trying to be nice. They're trying to be welcoming, but obviously there is like a barrier there. And that's where the social awkwardness comes in. And that to me is more interesting because we don't see a lot of that in film. We just sort of see the like, oh, you just think that you are superior to this person. And that's where all of the conversation ends up. But I like how this movie has just something different to say about it, where, I've been in this situation. I've had people be like, oh, but where are you from? It's like, oh yeah, I was born in Boston. Okay. But like, where were you before that? Like even if you say something like that, it's just kind of a thing. And it's like you said, it's not that they have the worst intentions in the world or they want you to feel bad or anything like that. It's just like a casual racism. It's a thing that happens. And, I like that this part of the movie gets into that. We can talk about Yuh-Jung Youn for sure. I think she's like what makes this film really, really work. I think up until her introduction, I think the film is kind of struggling to find its footing, but I think her introduction is so great because she's like kind of the anti-American dream. She kind of has like a different perspective than Monica and Jacob on like what's best for like these kids. And I love how the story like introduces her. We should say she first Korean actress to ever be nominated for Best Supporting on the Screen Actor Guild Awards. And I really hope she gets an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress because she really deserves it. Will, yeah, I know, you were kind of messaging me while you were watching this movie. It sounds like to me, like maybe this character was working for you. Is that the case?
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't want to make it sound like we're focused on her just because you had the interview with her, but I do really think she is, like you said, like kind of the heart of the film, or the reason why it works so well is because she has a clear perspective. She fits in a little bit differently than the other characters, but she's also, complex and nuanced in her own individual ways. And I think what you're referring to more specifically is that she doesn't give any D's or F's when it comes to what she does, which I think is, quite entertaining from a film standpoint. But I think, some of her moments, kind of have like the very heavily scripted moments, which, like where we get like the title drop and stuff, which might ring false for some people. But I think it works by and large. I really do think her performance is key, like you said, to the film working. But I do think generally just the whole cast here is quite good. For me, it's really, I think, comes down to her and then Alan S. Kim, who plays David. I think he's only like 7 when they filmed this. I don't exactly know how old he was when
he was dabbing at Sundance, if I recall.
Really?
whole time. Fantastic.
Yeah, we see so many child performers that, some of them are quite good, but, just the complexity he brings his performance, and, it's such a nuanced character in the way it's written. And I think it's really a testament, not only to the screenplay, but how he plays it, especially for an actor so young. I think that's also one of the key reasons why the movie works. And I agree with you, Abby, that Will Patton's performance is quite good. Though I must admit, when I saw him, for some reason, my brain kept thinking that it was Will Poulter. Like I kept people talking, seeing him. Like I saw Will P. So like I don't know, for some reason my brain kept assuming that Will Poulter was going to show up in the film for some reason. and I don't know why, but
that's a different movie too, because if he's going to be showing up in a movie like this, he's not going to be casually racist. It's just
well, that's what I mean. I was like, I kept waiting for him. Like, is he going to be at the church? Is he going to be in the hospital? Like, where's Will Poulter? And then like I looked it up. And I was like, oh, people were talking about Will Patton. That makes sense. So that's my bad. There's no reason why, other than my brain being weird, why Will Poulter was supposed to be in this film.
It's not like you wanted him here. It's not, you were like, this movie's only going to work if he's here.
I like Will Poulter a lot. I think he's a very talented actor, but sure. I mean, I just don't know why. For some reason, for I guess like 85% of the film, I was just like, when's Will Poulter going to show up? Like they keep delaying him. He's supposed to be here at some point, and then I looked it up, and then it wasn't. But
I could like read your notes where you're like, I'm docking this a full letter grade if he doesn't show up.
I just kept wondering, like, when are they going to establish this Will Poulter character? And then he just never showed up. So, I think, like you were saying, I think it just really works in those kind of key nuanced ways. There are a couple things that don't quite work for me from like a screenplay standpoint. Like there's a moment at the end during the climax that felt a little contrived. Like they set it up, but it kind of felt a little easy in terms of a resolution. But it's just all minor stuff, I think, by and large. Like Abby was saying, like I think what works here is what really shines, and I can see this one growing on me in my estimation as I think about it more.
Totally. Not a hard film to nitpick for sure. I think my big nitpick with it, and not even nitpick, this is more of a minor issue, is with how they handle the daughter, the sister played by Noel Kate Cho. I don't think she's really given her due. I feel like there's a deeper, more richer role for her in this movie, but she kind of gets forgotten. And I think it's definitely intentional that she's like, I wrote in my review that she's like the unsung hero of the family. Like looks after her brother, she's well behaved, but I just never think that she gets that real moment to like come into the film and like have her mark, which I think she deserves.
No, yeah. I agree. I was actually going to be one of my, I was just going to say that was actually going to be one of my notes for my final notes, that I wish there was more to her because her perspective felt lacking in comparison. But yeah, I agree.
You say as you stamp out Abby trying to say her perspective. I'm doing it too.
Sorry, my bad. I didn't do that on purpose. My apologies.
I was going to say, I think that, if the film focused on her a little bit more, I feel like that would be a very different story. It's a story that I would like to see. But yeah, it's a very different experience that she has compared to the experience that her brother has and the experience that her parents are having. It's you can kind of see hints of that, like the beginnings of that conflict within her. But I would be super curious to see, like, really, even if she were to have, like, if a character like that were to have their own film, I feel like I would gladly watch that, and that would be a really rewarding experience too.
Right, yeah. And I think this film could have easily found room for it. I just think that they didn't, and that's what bugs me a little bit. But okay, let's do our final thoughts and grades for Minari. We'll start with you, Abby. Yeah, anything else you want to add? Anything from like music, cinematography, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I think that there's been some good notes about the cinematography here too. It's really, I think, very pretty and very. I always appreciate it when kind of overlooked parts of the country, I guess in this case Oklahoma, standing in for Arkansas, kind of get a nice visual due. Just as a side note, I was writing about The Straight Story recently for Roger Ebert, and that was a thing that I really appreciated about that film as well. And yeah, it's always nice to see these parts of the country really to be shown as the natural the places of natural beauty that they really are. And I feel like the film does a good job of showing that, as well as accurately portraying like what it looks like to live there. I think overall, this is an easy A for me. I think there's a lot about this that's super lovely, a lot of individual performances that really stand out, and a lot of this that I think is probably very authentic to Lee Isaac Chung's experience and memory of having grown up in this place. And I feel like that is apparent throughout.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to say, because I kind of made it sound like none of this takes place in Oklahoma, but there are some scenes that are in Oklahoma City. So, just saying, it's not a lot of the film or anything, but there are a few times where Monica and Jacob go to the city and all that. So yeah, it's all pretty close proximity. Okay. Will Ashton, final thoughts and your grade on Minari.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm thinking about it still. Like I only watched it yesterday, and I've been reflecting on it a lot. So my grade might go up as I think about it more, but right now I'm pretty firm and solid B+. Like we were saying, I think what works here really works, and I think the stuff that is so appealing about it resonates more as you think back on and reflect on it. So I can see this one being higher in my estimation as I think about it a little bit more. But for now, it's definitely a solid film, and I can definitely see the appeal for sure.
All right. Yeah. Same for me in terms like, yeah, it's definitely a film that grew on me and grew on me. And I really liked it even at the start. So that's why I'm pretty high on it. Yeah, I'm still an A. I think this film just really is lovely and beautiful. And I really want to mention Emile Masseri's score in this. Rewatching the film, I forgot how good the score is, like, especially like the intro. And I've been kind of poring over the soundtrack lately. Emile Masseri, my goodness, between like this and Kajillionaire, Last Black Man in San Francisco, he is on like an ascent right now. And I really hope people are paying attention because his knack for composition, it's so unique and special and different. And it's fantastic, really. So yeah, I'm still a huge fan of this one. I think it's really great. And yeah, it sounds like it's an easy recommendation from all three of us. You can check out Minari right now in limited theatrical release. I know it's playing in some drive-ins, and it's going to be hitting on demand on February 26th, so later this week. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.